Okay, I think we're recording. So, what's up, guys? I am Kate with TypeMatch, and I'm here today with Lindsay. And she has a YouTube channel where she talks a lot about MBTI, and she's an INTJ, has a lot of awesome videos about INTJs. So, I will link her channel in my description later. But today, we're just going to talk about like INTJs in relationships. And I have a lot of questions for you. So, ready to get
Okay,
down to it?
awesome.
Okay.
Excited.
First one is do you think that INTJs look for in a partner? Some
Okay.
qualities.
Yeah. Okay, great question to start with. I've marinated on this for a while, thinking about in a lot of ways how patient my partner is with me. We've been together for many years now,
What's
but
his type?
he is an ENFP.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes. You're very stereotypical ENFP. And I didn't know that, before we got together, just naturally, nature just made it happen. But one thing I'm always very grateful for is the fact that he is able to be independent and let me at the same time have my independence to go down my crazy rabbit holes. So I think that's one thing that stands out really more than anything else with INTJs. And in particular female INTJs, because I feel like it's more noticeable in some ways that we tend to, once we get locked into a subject with our NI function, that first function, and we get set in a direction, it's like no matter who you are or no matter what you're trying to do, you can't knock us off that path to kind of completion of what we're seeing as like we want to accomplish this thing down the road. And when we kind of get into that mindset and we lock into something, what we can tend to do is to look past things like normal reality things, but also things related to people with us. And it's nothing personal to them. It's just that we're locked in. And so having someone that is able to, while we're doing our thing, for them also to be able to be independent and take care of themselves and do their own thing, find their own passions, and be able to live a piece of their own lives and not require our attention all the time.
Yeah.
It's the most gratifying thing, because then I don't have to worry that this sounds wrong. I don't have to worry that I'm neglecting someone, because I know that they're able to kind of sustain themselves and be happy for themselves. And then when we're together again, okay, great. Now things are just back to normal, and there's no tension between like, oh, you were doing
Yeah.
other thing and not paying attention to me. I can't deal with that.
Yeah, I think that's the type of relationship that an ENFP definitely prefers too. EPs in general need to have like a lot of freedom. So like you're just like
hmm
built to provide that, and it's perfect for both of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're the first INTJ woman that I've really talked to. So
Cool.
it's cool for me to see like how the personality like manifests differently in
Yeah.
in a woman versus an INTJ man. And I wonder, um, do guys like find you intimidating ever?
Uh, so I would say that men and women alike, it really depends on, I think, the other person's personality type, because I think in a lot of ways to people, we can come across as, because we're so kind of focused in like one abstract direction that you can't really see the reality of in the present world. They just know that we're kind of off going somewhere. It seems like we're looking past people, or it seems like we're looking through people, or that people aren't relevant, or people can perceive it that way. I understand now. But that's not true. It's like we're going this one way, and it's like if you're not on that path, it's like I don't really see kind of what's happening with you. And
Okay.
so because of that, I know I've been in that headspace before many times around people. And again, it's not been personal, but I realized they've taken it as, oh, like she doesn't like me, or she thinks some way, or I'm not going to talk to her because I just don't know what's going on. Like I don't know what if she's in likes me or not.
Yeah.
And it's been funny because people who maybe I've had the same group of like circle of friends with or something, who have gotten to know me over time later, have then come to me and been like, in the beginning, like I was scared of you. And I was
Yeah.
like, me? And then we'll laugh
Yeah.
at that point because they realize that there was nothing to be scared of or intimidated by, or
Yeah, right.
like bad. And they're like, oh, you're a very nice person. You're just like, initially you kind of come across as a little bit distant and like as removed and almost like separated from other people. But the thing is, again, as they realize it wasn't intentional, that's just an aspect of my personality that comes through sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, just talking to you here, I see you as like very warm, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm also like a T dominant woman, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that can be like difficult for maybe like F dom types who aren't used to seeing a
Mm-hmm.
woman like with kind of like the very like lower FE.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah.
it's just like a little bit confusing. Like, what's she thinking? What's she doing?
Right.
Um, yeah, but I wondered if like for men it was the same kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, the few INTJ men that I know, I think it comes down to having, we don't have SF as savior functions, as dominant
Right.
functions. And so kind of like what's cool or relevant or we like in reality in the real world, we're out of touch with. So I think for both of us, it's like what's cool or real now, we just look past. And so we can't connect with people on that SF level. And
Yeah.
if people are bringing up SF conversations, if people are talking about movies, or if people are talking about this thing that happened recently, it's like we're kind of at a standstill because we're like, I don't know anything about that. And my
Yeah, yeah.
brain doesn't naturally go there. And so it's like, I can't contribute to this conversation because I have no relevant information on it. And
Oh.
it's just kind of it's not awkward, but it's like unless the conversation goes in a more abstract theoretical way, especially if it's people who we don't know, it's like we feel like we can't contribute, and so we just don't, and then we're just like quiet.
Yeah, yeah, and, Dave talks about, like, how the SF is really where people meet.
Hmm.
Like, we've all agreed, like, as a society, this is what we can all talk about together and be on this page. So if you're not there, yeah, you really are on the outskirts, but that's, like, what fascinates me about INTJs and really, like, draws me to them. If I'm in the room with an INTJ, like, I just, there's, like, a magnetism. I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing over there? What are you like, you look mysterious." Like,
Yeah, I can see
yeah.
that. And I think a lot of times EP types, for some reason, they feel like the least intimidated by us for some reason. And I
Yeah.
think it tends to be because of the fact that, we're both double deciders. So we're okay with that self and tribe
Mhm.
issues. So in our eyes, like people can really do no wrong, like from the EPs or the IJ perspective, like we're not polarized with people, right? We're comfortable in that zone of like, whatever happens, I can see both sides of the story. And then the EPs will see like the IJs and they'll be like, oh, something interesting and new over here. Like,
Yes,
oh,
exactly.
fascinating. I'm going to go discover it because I can do no wrong. I can, like, who cares what happens? Let's go discover this thing over here. And I think that's why a lot of times we tend to befriend the EPs because they're just unafraid and curious, or they befriend us. And then we're like,
Yeah, yeah. It's like the traditional, like, a meme of, like, how does an introvert make a friend? Like, an extrovert likes them and adopts them, and
yeah,
I think that's, like, the EPIJ dynamic there.
I couldn't
Um,
agree.
yeah, I love that. That's exactly how my mind goes, like, "Oh, something interesting to discover." Like,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, what's I have to know.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if they don't like me, okay.
Yep.
I have other people here, and it could be interesting that they don't like me.
Hmm.
It's like, then
Yeah.
you get to, like, think about, like, "Well, why?" Like,
Yeah, exactly. More information.
yeah. Okay. Um, Getting back to relationships, what do you think would be some deal breakers for INTJs?
Oh, okay. Good question. Uh, I would say someone who takes our attention as being reciprocal of the amount of love we have for them.
Mm,
So if we were to say, like, if we were able to, let's say be in the NI zone, be working on a project or something like that, and not be able to deliver the amount of attention to the other person or the level of care they may like want
mhm,
at that time, if we weren't able to deliver that, I could see, like, if that person got upset or that was a hang up they keep bringing up, like, you're not giving me enough time or enough attention, or I need this. I think that would be like an immediate deal breaker for me because it wouldn't allow me to do kind of what I do best, which is, kind of go down these little tunnels of thought and then kind of make something happen at the end. And I think in relationships, we all want to let the other person be able to, live their best life essentially and do the things that they're good at and just be complementary to each other. So if someone was thinking of my attention being somewhere else as being reflective of how much I cared about them, which is not true. I could love that person just as much one day and then, not see them for 2 months and then love them as much the next day. I have that capability, but if they can't see that as being true and they think it's personal, then it wouldn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense.
And I'd also say, like, on that as well, people who um, people who aren't focused on some sort of like progress in their own life, like to kind of develop something of themselves and see, because right, NI is always looking to like, what is this going to be in 5 years? Like, how is this journey going to evolve? If the person themselves can't see any kind of like future orientation for themselves, I think that could also be difficult because then it would mean it just means like they wouldn't be as focused on their personal progress moving forward. And for myself, it's like important that people have a passion to grow beyond who they currently are, because if we don't, then it's like, well, you just stay kind of in this stale, stagnant state. And it's like, I know I'm not going to be that way, so I would need someone who can continue to move forward like as I move forward, and we don't have to do the same thing, but just side by side.
Yes. Yeah. I've talked about that in some posts about INTJs. I think that's absolutely essential. I mean, for everybody, but more for that type of relationship that be very growth minded. Um, you can't have somebody that you think might hold you back.
Right.
Yeah. And that you need somebody that's like going to respect your own growth.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people like not only will they not grow in themselves, they want to hold you and keep you where they are because of that like insecurity. If you're better than me, so I've got to like hold you back. But that's super unhealthy. So what other things? What do you think if someone was going to try to date an INTJ, what are some things that like you should know going into the relationship besides like what you've talked about, like with like, okay, maybe like one is like you have to know that like your INTJ needs time alone to do their own thing.
Okay, maybe a good way for me to frame it as I'm thinking about this is to think about the things that we need that we won't naturally do ourselves. So I think when you're looking at an INTJ, realizing that they're going to tend to like I said, be going down these holes, but what they kind of need as a complement to that is someone who can pop them out of that place and it to be in a refreshing way. And so, what I look for in people and like what I find refreshing, like in a friendship or in a relationship, is someone who's not like a regular distraction, but someone who can basically metaphorically take my hand and be like, do you know what? We're going to take a break from what this thing that you're doing that's so important, and we're going to go do this for a while. And they kind of pull me out of my zone into this other reality. And sometimes we don't even realize how much we need that until someone else kind of does it for us or does it with us. And obviously if someone does it all the time, it's like, okay, well, that's enough. Like, let me go back to the thing.
Yeah.
But I think that, knowing that as an INTJ, it's like, yes, they're very focused, but that doesn't mean that they can't take a step away and do something that's different or refreshing and that's not at all related to that end goal. And I think that's so much where like a complementary partner comes in. And then also someone that can talk about, I want to say like someone who can talk about the abstract. That just sounds so. But what I really found is that people who I can shoot ideas with and who I can like talk about possibilities with, and either if it's from an NE or an NI perspective, if they're able to utilize that function well, and we can just idea map for a while and kind of I'm always looking to solve things. I know some other people like just to shoot off ideas for the sake of them being ideas, which is more
Yeah.
NE oriented. But I'm always trying to narrow down, and however they do it is fine. But someone who is comfortable being in that abstract realm is also, I found something that I need, because for me to talk about literal things all the time, it's I just don't feel like I have a lot to talk about. And so I think the communication can be harder there. And so knowing that I INTJs are going to be people who want to, with another person, kind of go through the process of TE and NT block banging, figuring out these abstract principles
Yeah.
and concepts and how they could kind of, and working through them with someone else and not just alone. And I would say that's probably a need that a lot of INTJs have, and something we enjoy doing
Yeah.
with someone else, you know?
Yeah, that's super fun. I
Mm-hmm.
understand why. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How okay, another question. How do you think INTJs flirt?
Ooh,
Do
not.
INTJs flirt?
Oh
My
my God.
experience with INTJs flirting with me has been it's very dry but quite direct. Like they'll just be going up to me and asking me out, but I know that they've been thinking about that for a really long time. Um, but
That's.
like I haven't seen the INTJ like play like that fun like game of like, do you like me? Do I like you? Like, you
I
know.
don't even know if we're capable of that. To be totally honest.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny. I was talking to a friend who's still single, and she was talking about flirting, and I was just like, I don't even know if I was put in that situation if I would even know what to do, or I think I've ever kind of used that skill before. I think any relationship I've been in, I've I've known the other person had a level of attraction to me, and if I wanted to engage, I've been like, okay, so here's a way that we could work this out. Would this work for you? And it's
That's
like you're saying,
amazing.
like it's extremely dry. Like it is not romantic, like at all. And it's just like it's just I don't know. It's I think I'm lucky because of the fact that I'm a female, that men tend to like want to take the step to be like, oh, like they'll approach you more, or they'll go to you more than you would have to like put yourself out there for them. But I mean, I don't think I would know what to do. And in terms of someone like flirting with me and then me having to like reciprocate, it's extremely awkward. Like I just am like, oh gosh, I know I'm supposed to have a reaction, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then I just like the words that come out are not good, and it's just terrible. So it's usually better for me if I form a friendship with someone with like no strings attached. Like there's no like romantic like pressure. And then if we become friends and we're able to vibe on a friendship level, then it kind of morphs into this more like, oh, this could be like a romantic thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I think INTJs might be some of the hardest people to pick up at a bar.
Oh, I would say definitely. I
Not
mean,
only are they not there, but
yes, my first thought.
but also they're not gonna want to play like this, like, oh, you're looking good kind of deal.
We won't play the
Yeah,
SF game. That's the
yeah,
thing. It's like we don't know how to play the SF game well. And so we won't play it. The thing is like if you want to flirt with an INTJ, it has to be on like a nerd talk level. Like, and to me, like that's okay. So that could be, I guess, like our style of flirting. I guess you could say is like let's talk about some weird abstract stuff, and then we kind of we like will play off each other. Like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, I love talking with people who are experts in a field that I don't know as much about. And so like I have a friend who's just an absolute genius in this certain form of mathematics that like allows him to like it's very he's one of the best in the world basically for it. And so we'll talk about this stuff with math and science and like quantum mechanics, and we'll go down this rabbit hole, and it's so much fun to go down that journey. And like it was just it's straight nerd talk, right? So I
yeah,
think people who were able to do that with, it's like an instant connection, and maybe that's just more of our form of flirting.
yeah. No, I love it. That makes total sense. Yeah. Like, let me tell you about this interesting thing. You have to engage the mind.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Ooh, do you have any ideas for a good date to take an INTJ on?
Oh, okay. Okay. So a good idea for a date. Um,
Or do you just let the INTJ plan the date?
so the thing is, it's like this one's harder to answer on a few levels, but like I think the explanation of why is beneficial. So again, the whole what's valued in reality thing is more disassociated from us. So a lot of times, like, I don't care if someone plans out like a date. I just want to know what's going on. I don't like surprise dates. Or like I don't
Yeah.
like surprise, like all of a sudden, guess what? We're gonna go do this, like out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh gosh, like if I had known we were going to do that, I would have like worn different shoes, or I would have had a sweatshirt, or I would have made sure to have done this thing like at a different time. And so for me,
Yeah.
it's more like being aware of like, okay, what's going on? Like, what's the plan? Like, let's talk about it. And if someone else had already all the stuff planned, awesome, just let me know, and like I'm on board, let's go do your thing. you know um in terms of us doing the planning, it's like I don't care as much about what we do in reality, and so it's like
Yeah.
I don't really have that many ideas of like what would be a good date to take someone on, or what would
Yeah.
be um I think things that are really simple and give us the ability to just like talk and connect more on a deeper level are interesting. I can think of some good dates I've been on have just been things that like we're gonna go out in nature and like
Mhm.
go out to like a park, or like my ENFP was like, we're gonna go climb this really awesome tree in this park, and I'm like, okay, like let's go
Yeah.
do it. Let's go climb that tree. And it was just like, it's something so simple, but that's the
Mhm.
thing. I appreciate those simple things, and then also things like one time I was taken to a cool science museum that was really fun, and
That is
yeah,
a good one.
yeah.
I like that one. Yeah.
And then other than that, I mean, usually like the simpler, the better. And if you think
Mhm.
about INTJs, like as it has to do with people, we study people. Like we love like figuring out the other person. Like that's a way we kind of engage in this weird
Mhm.
way. Is we're like, oh, let me discover more about you. Okay, now I'm interested.
Yeah.
You know. And so one thing I love to do with either like friends or partners, whatever, is I'll get these little decks of cards of like questions to ask the other person.
Did you
And
get them from School of Life?
I have like four different
Mhm.
decks, so that I
Okay.
may have one from
Yeah.
them. My favorite one right now is called "We're Not Really Strangers," and
That's
and
cool.
it's a great one. It has three levels basically of like
Uh-huh.
the beginning stage, like the middle stage, and then like the really go deep stage of like getting into the other person's head and reciprocating. And I love doing those with people because discuss doing more of the discovery
Yeah.
and like analyzation, it's like it leads to a deeper place of connection, but it also leads to more understanding for us, which is what we're always craving. So
Yeah, and it's like a fun game. I love that stuff.
yeah,
I haven't bought one of those cards, but if you like Google the decks of cards, like you can find enough pictures that you can get a lot of the questions.
yeah, totally.
And then I just have like docs on my computer of like interesting questions for
Yeah,
like conversations. I love that kind of stuff. It's so fun.
it is.
Yeah, that's a good date idea. I like that. Or just like hanging out with friends idea.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think, like you said, for them, it doesn't really matter like what you're physically doing. It matters like that your mind is engaged and active. Like, what did my mind do on this date? Not what did I do? Like,
100%. And
yeah,
also like creating things with like the other person. So like creating something to like a completion, like we're going to do a video together, or we're going to like do this kind of creative process. Like I think those are really memorable for us. Like as it is, like memory is not the best thing for us because it's like sensory experience, but it's like when you work a process with someone to get to an endpoint, it's like that is so much more memorable than being like, oh, we ate food and like talked about something, you know?
Oh, you solved the problem together too. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, my last question is, so you're an INTJ in a relationship with an ENFP. Are
Mhm.
there, so obviously you think that that's a good match, right?
Yep.
Okay. What would you say in that relationship is best and what's most difficult, just like based on that match?
Ooh, okay, great one. I would say what's best is probably like the level of freedom we allow each other to have. Um, our relationship is very like, it's like not a jealous relationship. Like that's never something that comes up within our relationship. It's very, it's like trusting, it's permissive, it's very free, like with the other person, and we're not, we don't have a level of judgment towards the other person, which maybe that's just kind of like a healthy practice in general. Maybe it has something to do with type, I don't know. But you know, we like to live our relationship that way because it just allows us to do what we do best. And then, so that aspect's really good. The independence aspect of it is really good. Um, I also think like the fact that we both have FI is good because when our values are on the same thing, it's good because like our hearts are aligned in the same direction. And so I think having similar values as the other person is important if you're like in a relationship like that. I would say the
Yeah.
harder things are going to be, so like for myself, I'm very kind of time and system bound in terms of like in my head and through my week, I have a very set group of things that need to get done at certain points and things I'm trying to like bring to completion in certain areas at different points. And he is not time bound like that. He is not, and he's much more free and like much more will go with the flow.
Right.
And so, you know, if we're like trying to get out the door at a certain time and then he's like, oh wait, I forgot to like get this one thing over here. And then it leads to another thing and to another thing. And I'm just like over here
Okay.
losing my mind in the corner because I'm like, oh my gosh, we had like 2 hours. Why didn't you think about all these things before? Like, and
Mhm.
so I would say the being adhered to like more of the timeline of things and also like being process and goal oriented is not as much of a priority with ENFPs. Like they're kind of on the fun train of ideas, like the ideas and the fun train of like
Yeah.
what's fun to them, you know? And so
Yeah.
I would say that can be harder. And then also like completing things. Like if we're going to try like finish something together, it's like I'll tend to take the weight of like the finishing part and like honing everything in, and like that always ends up being my responsibility, which sometimes it's nice to defer that responsibility to someone else once in a while, and so that's not always
Yeah.
as much. But you know, those are more like you learn how to work those through with someone, and then I think the more that you're with them, the more they're like, okay, I understand that that's a need of yours, and I'm going to respect
Mhm.
that need because I respect you. So
Okay. Is there any conflict over like, you both have the same judging functions
mhm.
and they're just like in reverse order.
Right,
So your parent is his child and his child is your parent function.
right.
Is there ever like, since we argue from a position of our parent function, does it ever feel like your parent function is like kind of beating up on their child function or vice versa? Do they ever make you
Well,
feel bad like you're not a good person, or like you make them feel like they're not as smart or something? I don't know. Um,
yes. Okay, that's a great perspective to look at it through too. So
yeah.
I would say sometimes like so TE wants to be like, does this work or does this not work, right?
Yeah.
From
Right.
from an extroverted spectrum, like, okay, this thing's gonna work over here, this thing's not gonna work. And then the FI on the other side will say, well, it doesn't matter because I don't like it, right? It doesn't matter
Mhm.
because, you know, and they're not looking, they're taking it from their personal value perspective. And so I think that can be hard because when you're trying to help someone, like I'll try to like help him and be like, hey, this if you want to accomplish this, this is what would work better. And then it's like the deflect of like, well, I don't like that, so it doesn't matter, you know. And so while it's not really an argument, because I would say that we never really argue, it's more like
Yeah.
we can't meet there sometimes because the T and the F is kind of conflicting. And then on the other side, it's like, because he's so much stronger in FI than I am, and like even though they're just flipped, like if you're
It's a
talking,
big difference though.
it's
Yeah.
a huge difference. And also like in the OP method, like I have feminine FI as a demon, and he has masculine FI. So his FI is even more punchy and strong in a savior state, and mine's like movable and like small. So, so when it comes to like a sense of like emotion, like if I actually say something like, this made me really upset, like in this area, it can easily be overpowered by the like, well, like my perspective of what happened made me feel like this, and so it'll come with this bigger, stronger, dominant wave of FI, and it'll kind of like wash over my FI, if that makes sense. Because
it does.
I'm not as well versed in that muscle to be able to flex it the way that other people can, and so because that, I'll usually back down a lot quicker. Like, okay, like, all right, well, let's not talk about that then. Let's kind of deflect and like, all right, I'm not going to even bother going down there because I can't flex that muscle. So I'm not going to go try to work it at the gym right now. I'm going to go work on something else. And so I'll tend to be the more, where I'll punch on the logic and I'll be like, this works, this doesn't work. What don't you understand about that? And then that kind of like will get him to be like, like I don't want to deal with that, right? And then at the same time, when it comes to the value conversation of what makes you happy, upset, what are you upset about? I'll kind of back down. I'll be like, well, this isn't relevant. Like, it's not a battle I want to fight right now, and so I'll back out on those.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not really an argument, but it's like, and I get what you're talking about. Yeah, that's I'm an ENTP with an INFJ, and it's like the exact same type of struggle between like where your priorities are and where, your strength is. It's like, okay, I can't go swimming in the deep end with you there so much.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna defer to you here. But it's really cool, like how like when things are going well, the child can like look up to that sort of like savior function, and it's like you've got each other covered, really. So
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
yeah. Anyway, though, that's all the questions I have for today. Unless there's anything else that you wanted to add.
No, that was really great. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming to my channel. This was awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And
Okay.
this is really fun.
Yeah, and I'll put your link to your YouTube channel. Do you want me to link anything else? Do you have a website?
Yeah, so you can link snug.me, which is like the platform I just launched for YouTubers and influencers and then their fans to be able to request book sessions with them and talk to them about things. So
Yeah. Okay, I'll link that as well. All
cool.
right. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks.
Yeah.